Had three agenda items on the list. We're down to two. We had item C, 316 Federal Street withdrawn. And so that's not on the agenda for now. We'll go right into the minutes from the last meeting. And Rita was not here.
I'll abstain.
Okay, so you'll abstain from the vote. Any comment on the minutes?
I didn't notice any. So Kim, did you see? any?
No.
Move to approve.
Okay,
Second,
Second.
sorry.
okay, very good. All right. Vote for the minutes. Aye.
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 Okay, so we have approval for minutes from last meeting. We'll move into agenda item A, which is 801 Carrette Street. We'll have a staff intro, followed by an applicant conversation and a public hearing.
Not too many people here today. This is rare for us, right? So this is 801 Carteret Street. It is for conceptual approval. This is basically a little over 9,000 square foot building. It's an old college campus building. I guess that has a number of renovations. It was originally built in the 60s, then some additions in the 70s and the 90s. Really, the whole thing is being proposed for renovation. It has gone to the HTRC. It is non-contributing. It is in the Point neighborhood, and it's also institutional commercial. So it's not a form-based code district. That shouldn't really play much of a into the request itself. But again, these are some major renovations, and you see the pictures, and I think because of there's so many of them, I think because they have such a good presentation, I'll turn it over to Mr. McClure to take you through all those. You see there's about 5 requests. Again, it's conceptual, kind of more information on the entrance and a few other things, but I'll let them give their presentation and guide you through everything they're proposing. But again, it's non-contributing, the old college building, and conceptual approval. So.
Thank you. All right, let's get the applicant. Let us know what they're trying to do.
Jeremy was gonna need to say something before I said something, but I guess he's good. I'm Marty McClure with Coast Architects. Thank you for having us back again. And I am employed by USC Beaufort to do the renovation work on this project. And I have here today John Thomas with the University of South Carolina Project Manager, and Pinky Harriet with USCB representing the owner. So if you have questions I can't answer, I'll defer to them when it comes to those things, and they're here to support the project as well. I just would briefly want to kind of discuss sort of the scope of work so you understand what we're doing. This is primarily an interior, and I hate to call it gut and redo, but it's a renovation of building the original building dates back to the mid-60s. 2 more additions put on, one in the 70s and one in the, I think it was 98 maybe. There's a diagram in the drawings that show those different areas. I think it's Jeremy, if you go to A100, maybe, I believe it is, has a diagram that may help you understand. Somewhere in there is a diagram of here we go. This is good. So you'll see the building is non-contributing, but it happens to sit next to a very important historical building. So we do want to acknowledge the sensitivity of what we do does, impact the old Beaufort College building. We are not doing any work associated with the old Beaufort College building in this scope of work, but we are doing work all around it. As you can see, this building forms somewhat of a upside down U. The original in that drawing there, the green block is the original building, mid 1960s. 1-story, truly flat roof, coal tar, water sits on top of it and it leaks. And then the right-hand side was a 1976, 77 addition. Same thing, true flat roof with water standing on it. Both of these buildings have all of the mechanical systems on the rooftop, and then and no parapets. And then the third edition, or second edition, the third piece of this building, there was a partial demolition of that green area, and the library was built and some additional space there on the left-hand side. That is, just to give you a relationship, Carteret Street is at the bottom of the page, and the Center for the Arts is to the left. Center for the Arts some marine science buildings, and then these two buildings, Old Beaufort College and the Sandstone Building, constitute the bulk of USCB's main campus area here. So it is a critical building as far as the campus goes. And the intent is to renovate it to better serve their programs now, which includes nursing, marine science, cybersecurity. That's the main ones, isn't it? So they are science and tech related, and we will be putting in, the library will stay, although it's going to change kind of formats and be a little more, we're building in a maker space and a lot of student, my mind just went blank, not co-oping, but what's the collaboration? Collaboration was the word. A lot of student collaboration spaces in this building. And then we're also putting in, there's a larger lecture room, 3 or 4 classrooms, and 2 science labs, along with some faculty offices. So what's in there now, a lot of that's not going to be there when we're done. But now saying that we are reworking the interiors, we're reworking a lot of the building systems. One of the things we're going to do is get all the mechanical off the roof. And it's pretty unsightly now, sort of a dual purpose, multiple purposes for that. One is maintenance is difficult when they're located on the roof. The systems are old and need to be replaced. The roofing, all of the buildings need to be re-roofed. All of the original roofing is in poor condition. So we'll get those off of there, less chance for leaking. But we're also considering solar for part of the building if budget sustains it. So we want to have that sort of cleared off. So it's actually an existing building code issue where we need to counterbalance any new weight we put on the building by removing some weight off the building. So by removing these mechanical systems. And what we're proposing is it would be a bunch of split systems, but a split system, mechanical system, and we would use that existing mechanical yard in the rear to put the units on the ground, and then inside the building would be air handlers to distribute the mechanical systems. So big picture. I would like, and Jeremy, I think if you could go to photo sheet 1 back near the beginning, just quickly give you again the orientation. That top left photo shows you this building sitting as a backdrop to the very beautiful Beaufort College building. We did meet with the Old Beaufort College trustees to review the plans with them, and we will talk a little bit more on the bottom photo. And this wall, this west wall of this courtyard has a relief history mural that is depicting the history of education in Beaufort County. But it also happens to be a place where, because of the way it's structured, there's actually steel beams and some columns. We can remove some walls. And so one of the things we want to do is relocate those panels so that we can get a little more glass into the building. And I'll get into that, why we want to do that a little bit more as well. So the primary exterior changes, Jeremy, if you could go to photo sheet 4, I think it would be a good place to start. When I first walked up to this building, I didn't know where to go in. And I think the classic thing here is this is the walkway from the Performing Arts Center. When you walk out and there's a crosswalk, and the crosswalk goes dead into a wall. And what you think is the main entrance is to the left there, but there's not a door. It just looks like an entrance. So one of the challenges is on a limited budget, what can we do to improve the connectivity for students and create an entry to this building so that it's meaningful? So probably the number one exterior change that we're going to talk about today is what we're doing in that area at the end of that walk. And if you could go to a floor plan, maybe A101 would be good. Jeremy, if you can find us a bunch of sheets. So Jeremy's pointing to kind of this area that we're talking about that's centered on that crosswalk. And we felt like there was an opportunity here. And because it's an existing building, we're limited in what we can do with the existing building structure. We're actually proposing a small area of demolition and building a new structure that would go in this sort of rectangle right there. And that would allow us to do something new and exciting and create an entry to a building and also make a connection to the rest of the campus. So I'll show you some exterior renderings a little bit, but that's the primary access. And then the building, like we talked about, there'll be a lecture hall immediately, a lecture room immediately off of that space. There'll probably have a small cafe, coffee shop area that opens in that space. And also open in that space will be to the north of, or actually that's east, on this plan, will be the media center. The existing stacks that are there they'll be moved for renovation, but they'll come back in there. But we're also creating to the right of that area, a makerspace area, which is very popular now on college campuses where they can do collaborative projects, work together, a lot of virtual reality things, kind of cool techie stuff. It's all going to be sort of integrated into this media resource center experience. And then we do have to leave some load bearing walls in place. So we've got hallway walls that we really can't move because of structural issues if we start doing that. So our classrooms work along that hallway going down. And then you go all the way around the corner and you'll see we've got some area where we had enough open area. There's some steel columns in this area. So we're able to get lab space for our chemistry and biology labs down on the right-hand side. So that, and then in between there's some, you see a bunch of small rooms. That's all faculty office. We have about 10 faculty offices for faculty that are actually teaching in this building. And we have like a 4-office suite where they can, if they're not here permanently, they can come and land. And then that common area and those offices all open along this sort of unused courtyard. If you go out there right now, that's not a very friendly space because there's very little connectivity. It's not easy to even get to it. And so one of our goals is to open up this building and make that a viable, usable space in that courtyard behind the old Beaufort College building there. We're not changing the courtyard physical aspects of the courtyard, but we're doing a few things to help. One of the issues we do have is that's a west-facing wall. And so we're adding some additional landscaping to help block that late afternoon west sun. And we're proposing some sunscreen elements. We're looking at like a motorized sunscreen that adjusts based on the sun. It's located on the outside of the building, but it's like a roller. If you think of a roller shade, it's like an exterior roller shade that will help protect. But we want to have a lot of glass along those walls, and I'll show you some exterior elevations of that. So really the two areas that we're asking for change to the building are this entry area to the left, and then this wall that currently has these murals, the mural panels, concrete panels. And we're proposing to relocate those panels on the left and right sides of this courtyard, the interior of the U, if you will. And we have a document that further, when we met with TRC or HTRC, they asked us to look a little closer at how those panels would be grouped. And so there is a document, I think, Jeremy, it might be A2023, something like that. It does have, if you really want to get into the heart of things, there's a sheet with some photos of the panels. And I'd be honest with you, there it is. So there are some panels that don't have any significant historical information. And when we met with the Board of Trustees, this was their direction to us that we could eliminate a few panels because the side walls don't end up having as much room as the long wall on the front. Some of the panels are what I call button panels. They're just decorative. And then there are 3 panels that have the Civil War on them and have a flag on them that is not the appropriate flag for the Civil War. And so the committee suggested that we replace those panels with a panel that says the Civil War with the time frame and the school was closed, but doesn't have that image on it. So that is part of the scope of work. Those panels will be, as I said, relocated in the same groupings that they're in now, because some of the graphics, they end up being panels of 3 to 5 each, depending on what they're depicting. So we'll keep those together when we move them. So that is a change. And then other than that, we're doing new roofing, but you won't see this roofing. We are doing currently the original wing and the first edition have downspouts, but no gutters, which is a very odd detail because the rain doesn't get to the downspout. So we will be putting gutters on those buildings and getting slope, minimum slope, like 1/2 inch per foot, tapered insulation, modified bitumen roof system. And then I think we are also, because we have to meet some energy requirements, we'll be adding some sunscreen, sunshades on the south side, which is that is Duke Street, I believe, that's owned. They're just, you can see them. It's kind of hard to see in those elevations where those vertical windows are. We're adding just a horizontal shade structure to help shade those windows along that street. And then we have also shown in the drawings, solar panels, and we've got a solar consultant working right now on that. And that may or may not happen, depends on budget, but they'd like to have it because again, they'd like to have this building be, science and tech oriented in the final appearance. And then it may be easier to show these, exterior changes with the renderings, I think, Jeremy. So this is Washington Street, the Performing Arts Center's to your left, Carteret Street's to your back, and in the background of this rendering, you see the old Beaufort College building. So this element that we've created here is what I'm calling a clear story element. We pop a roof element up. I think that's a 2 and 12 slope on that roof, and that would have a standing seam. I don't know that you would ever really see it, but we plan on having a standing seam roof on that. And a glass sort of clear story around it. And that will be a totally new structure that supports itself. It'll be independent of the building. And I think maybe the next rendering gives you the difference in what it would be like to walk across the street into a entry of a building versus walking into that, if you remember the photograph of the blank wall. So we definitely think it helps create that entry. And it also is, hopefully inviting that area as a student commons area where they'll be able to, meet other students, do collaboration. Hang out between classes is the kind of space we're trying to create there to create some liveliness. Jeremy, if you could just pop on through maybe some of those renderings. Several of them are interior, but this is sort of the inside of that commons area as you enter the building. The entrance is to your left. You can probably pop through a couple of these interior ones, Jeremy, real fast because this is starting to look towards the media center. That's actually looking into the media center from the commons area. And then I think we've got one that starts to give you a sense. This is where those wall panels are now. And we're able to remove those wall panels and open up this wall. So you see the courtyard and that would be the rear of the Old Beaufort College building out there. So now all of a sudden that courtyard is part of this space and not completely segregated off. And so that's why we're trying to do that. And that's about it. So this is the courtyard space outside. So that's kind of what we're asking for, are those exterior changes. The only other thing, we are doing some repairs to some brickwork where there's water damage because of roof leaks. And then we will repaint the brick. We haven't picked colors yet. It'll probably stay a neutral color. And we are replacing exterior doors because they're all leaky and problematic. Right now, the exterior windows with a little bit of caulking are actually not terrible, but we don't particularly like the color of them. They're sort of they're a faded burgundy because they're 20-something years old. So we're going to have a paint guy come look at it, but we think we can paint those. And so we will be doing, the renderings just show them gray. We haven't really made decisions on colors right now, but they won't be, if I have anything to do with it, they won't be red. And so that's really the scope of work.
Great. All right, we'll maybe call you back up for more questions when we get into some discussion. Right now, we'll open up the public comment. Ms. Sunderla from HBF is here.
Good afternoon. Lisa Sunderla, Historic Beaufort Foundation. I want to thank Mr. McClure for meeting with our Preservation Committee on Friday. We are very excited about this project on a number of levels. One, taking a very nondescript institutional structure, specifically the elevation facing Washington Street, and doing something that is not only innovative, but is also complementary to the old Beaufort College building and sympathetic to it in a sensitive nature. And then taking the courtyard aspect, preserving the important pieces of that panel and repositioning them along the sides is just, a very innovative and excellent use without being able to lose that important part of what we looked at as the sandstone building history. So we're excited to see these changes happen. And then on a internal level, excited to see that USCB and their progressive nature to be able to take this older structure and to adaptively reuse it in a much more, I think, compelling way to assist not only the students, but the curriculum and being progressive going forward. So very excited about that. The one comment, well, two that the committee had just for consideration, and we've shared this with, of course, Mr. McClure, was the courtyard, which will get a great deal of sun coming in there where they have chairs, and you might want to show that, that again, Jeremy, the potential of doing a flat overhang or something that could go over top of that area just for protection from weather and or, elements. And then there was a question about the HVAC relocation. It's going into the rear, which I think is New Street, going into the rear of New Street in that brick enclosure. And just the question came up about, will there be elevated noise level? And we just wanted the university to take that in consideration as they're making those placements. But we support staff's recommendations and conditions and conceptual approval. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public wish to comment? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name for us.
Deborah Gray, 1300 Barnwell Bluff. I've worked in the library, part of Sandstone, since January 2018. So kind of talking from somebody who's had to deal with the existing building a lot. The library occupies the part from Washington Street coming, if you were actually on Carteret facing the original Beaufort College building, to the left-hand end of that. And our footprint isn't going to change, as Arnie said, inside at all. But we're going to be greatly impacted. And for example, the importance of the new entrance, that the entrance to the library is behind the original building right now, and it's pretty much hidden. And what we're really hoping is to be more the heart of the campus, and this will happen with the Washington Street entrance. Arnie mentioned a new roof and how the roof is flat right now. Every time it rains, we're running around the inside of the library, literally finding new leaks. And I found a lot of new leaks with Debbie, unfortunately named for me. The HVAC system, we've had a problem. It can't be updated anymore. And we have a major mold problem in terms of the books, and mold spreads. And so it's not just the number of books we see today. It's like, where is it going to pop out tomorrow? Meeting student needs, and both Lisa and Arnie talked about that. We have the prospective student tours coming through the library, and I get to hear the people as they come through, and there is not enthusiasm on the part of either the prospective students or their parents who are going to pay the bills in terms of looking at how antiquated we are. And of course, they're going to other schools, and the other schools look a lot better than us. And unfortunately, it means we suffer recruitment losses. We're hoping, again, as has been mentioned, we will have more collaborative spaces because the internal footprint hasn't changed at all. We've done a lot in the last probably 2 years in terms of weeding our collection to see what's online, where we have duplicates, or for example, textbooks that don't add permanent value to the collection because they become antiquated very quickly. So we're doing what we can to increase the interior space. But again, the renovations are going to allow us to have what the students are asking for. They really want to be able to do a lot of collaborative work. They want quiet spaces where if they want to study individually, that's possible. We can't really offer enough of that right now, just to make it visually more up to date and welcoming. And again, for the possibility of enhanced technology, we've had electrical engineers, structural engineers crawling around the space the last couple of days and trying to see what can be done in terms of us introducing a lot more technology, because again, a lot of our resources are digital now, and the students want to use that kind of equipment. It's been highlighted, and that's why we're here, that the original Beaufort College building is on the historic register. We are adjacent to and part of the point. And so when they designed the original building, when they did the two additions, it was not only a goal, but it was really a, I think, set in stone criteria that we be in harmony with the area that we're actually in. And so that resulted in Sandstone being what I would call a subdued building. We don't really stand out architecturally, except for that mural. And that's important, not only in terms of giving some architectural texture significance to the building, but it does, again, not only capture the history of the college/university, but really a lot of the Beaufort community. For example, you'll see references to smallpox epidemic. Civil War has been mentioned, floods here. What concerns me is that until they actually start taking things apart, they're not sure how that is attached to the building and whether it can really come off and remain intact so that the different portions that we're trying to save will be reused on other parts of the building. And so I would ask that there just be some attention when they actually get to the point of knowing, is this going to safely work or not? That, for example, sand casting be considered if there is any question mark as to whether we're going to be able to save it in one piece. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comment, either virtual or from the audience? Hearing none, we'll close public comment and bring it up to the board. Now, this is for conceptual approval. Anyone have any comments related to what you've heard?
I was in the building yesterday, as a matter of fact. I meet there with the Small Business Association probably every other month or so. And every time I go in there, there is either mold in that office or the air is not working. And from the very beginning, since we moved to Beaufort, I found it hard, as Arnie said, to find the entrance. So it took me a while to figure out, okay, that's not where I need to be going. And then I'd get lost once I got in there. But I think what we're seeing is a breath of fresh air. I love the concept, and I feel like it's bringing USCB up to date, and it's finally getting the attention in Beaufort that we deserve. So I'm excited.
Great. Anything from this end of the table?
It looks great.
Just a couple things. I have a kind of a follow-up question regarding the panels, and this is more curiosity, if you'll indulge me. How they are removed or will be removed, and can they be, is there any danger of these panels being destroyed, when they're in that process of being removed and then reattaching? And Arnie, maybe you could, I don't know if that's a.
Well, I will say that we have actually the best drawings we have are actually the original building drawings, which do show them attached with two steel or two, I think they're steel clips, top and bottom. So I'm hoping that means if we can get to them, and we'll probably have to get to them from the back, remove masonry. They're basically in lieu of the brick veneer in those locations. There's masonry, CMU behind them, concrete block behind them. So we think we can get them off relatively easy if we can get to them. Because there's some high windows there, there's a steel beam and columns, so the wall's not load bearing there. That's one reason we could remove them.
Is there a contingency plan in the event that it's more problematic?
Well, not at conceptual, there's not, but yes, there probably needs to be. I mean,
Okay.
we just haven't gotten that deep into it. Even the idea of, she mentioned sand casting might be something if we find, and I think what we would do, obviously, we either, may do some destructive demolition before we bid the project, which would be ideal, and see if we could get one of the non-important panels off, see how easily it comes off. Or we may just have to have it in the documents, so the contractor has to sort of do a test run with one and have a contingency plan in place if that doesn't work.
Well, I would say ideally, keeping the panels is obviously what the public interest is, just because of the uniqueness of them. But
Right.
the fact is, the building's a non-contributing structure, and those items aren't protected under the current ordinance. So the effort should be to made to try to save them, but as some contingency plan, if you don't or not able to, but I don't think this board can tell you how to take them off or how to protect them.
Right.
It's gonna be something that, I think it is a public interest. Interest, not a lot of public information about those panels. People don't really speak to them,
Right.
except maybe when they were talking about removing monuments across the country a couple of years ago. The rebel flag came up at that time, and that was a question mark about Beaufort. Would we follow suit if,
Yeah,
and force the university to do something if the rest of the communities were doing it? And I think at the time, political thoughts were just leave it alone. So you'll be facing that again, probably.
well, it's been some question, and I think the university has had some legal consults on as far as the monuments, because there's a monuments law. I don't know if you feel.
Right, our attorneys do not find that panel, especially because of the not being the appropriate.
Yeah, come on, say who you are.
Sorry, I'm Pinky Harriet. I am the Vice Chancellor of Finance and Operations for the university. Our legal team did not find that to be in a part of the legal documents that require us to keep that, especially since it's the wrong flag. Dr. Rowland led that effort to do the research to make sure that we were going to be in compliance with everything that is in state ordinances. So that being said, and of course, just to kind of add to what Arnie's already said, it is our utmost goal to keep the panels intact and replace them to the side of the buildings. I think we will do the best we can to do that.
Right.
I think you've got a very nice project. I haven't been in the building, but I drive by there all the time, and it's very much background building, and I never realized until you pointed out that you walk into a blank wall.
Yeah.
Long overdue, and I think this is one, you're talented, you got a very good design solution, but I think it's a great sort of example of how you blend new and old, or medium old, if you will, because these buildings aren't historic in nature, but you've taken a background building, you have a very classical historic building next door, and you've melded these things together in a very nice way, and I think that's sort of the success story here that we should continue to look for in these projects that come through, the city of Beaufort. Thank you, Arnie.
Right. I don't have any comments. I think I support the project in conceptual and like to see what the next step is. So I'll entertain a motion if there's no other comments related to.
I'll make a motion just to approve as presented, and I don't think there, with any comments noted by the staff. Just, let's motion.
Second the motion.
So we have a motion and a second on the table. Any further conversation? Hearing none. Ms. Rita, would you vote first?
Aye.
Support that? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, University, and we look forward to seeing this project move forward. All right, folks, we'll move on to the second item, item B, 1013 Charles Street. This will be the second time we've seen this project. See what they brought back to us.
Yes, this came before you last month, July 15th, for conceptual approval. So this, if you remember, they're proposing a mixed-use building to a non-contributing current kind of a vacant warehouse, if you will, on Charles and Congress Street. I guess if we move forward, Jeremy, that would be great. It's in the T4 district. But it went to a number of TRCs that you can see the comments. They started with about 17 or 18 comments, and it moved down to about half of those. And now at the last meeting, there were really a few main comments, and that was to remove the observation kind of deck or tower that was on the property, and also to switch to a metal awning on the second story. And the applicant has kind of done both of those things. They've changed it to kind of more of a open, like light kind of well there. So I guess just going through it, maybe this is for preliminary approval. So again, at final, you'd see all the final materials. So again, you are looking at preliminary approval. They're doing that kind of barrel roof design and trying to keep the parapet and the existing nature of that existing warehouse building kind of intact. And so with that, again, the major changes that, are that removing that that tower and the deck and the awning. And I guess any final details again will be at the next rounds, but I'll give it up to the applicant to make their presentation. And I know that she's online right now on Zoom, Ms. Honeycutt. So.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll let the applicant opine. Any questions? I see she's online. Welcome.
That's me. Thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
No, I appreciate the time and the comments from everybody that I've been able to speak to along the way. And I do feel that some of the comments, are just adding as we move along to benefit the outcome of the building. And obviously with the removal of which I wish it never have been called an observation deck, but the roof deck, to more of just a light well to allow light into that loggia space, I think is still going to benefit the usability and warmth of that kind of corridor loggia space as a kind of an outdoor space for the tenants of the building. And in looking at the front canopy, where we had previously just had an extension of the roof, we explored a couple different options with more of a flat canopy, similar to the retail commercial spaces downstairs. And we felt that in maintaining the curve of the roof, but bringing it down in scale and location, really celebrated that parapet a little bit more. And when we were looking at it as a flat canopy, you kind of wondered what was back there, the way it showed up, from street level. So I think the resolution with maintaining the barrel really does accentuate the parapet more, but the scale has been brought down, and I think it just works a lot better. And so I think those were the two key items in terms of the physicality of the building that we were looking at. We also delved deeply into the parking and landscaping. And I think one of the things that I didn't pick up in the earlier submittal is that we actually did have a tree survey done. I think it was on the concept submittal that I had included the actual Atlas survey that was done in February. And that actually did have the tree survey on it, which we have shown the two, I'll say, contributing trees that we have indicated here on the site plan. So in addition to those, which as far as I know, meet the criteria as an overstory leafy tree that we are not going to remove on the, Jeremy, I think it's the landscape plan A2, we really are just trying to propose adding, you can see on the lower plan, some larger roof deck potted trees, if you'll have it. And in the corner of the actual site, I had a conversation with Department of Transportation and with Kurt and Bruce briefly the last few days. Department of Transportation has basically thrown the use of the parking and the ability to put in that planter back to the city. So I'd like to add something just to kind of soften that corner and provide more landscaping around. The potted plants that we're showing are literally just that, potted plantings. With the corner planter and the idea of putting in a palm, with that being thrown back to the city, I understand that the city is not necessarily in a position to take on more city maintenance. And I would kind of sell the idea that I would sponsor that, as you would, some of the other maintenance programs of the boat launches and roadways and things like that, that might be sponsored and maintained, that I would be, with approval, accepting the expense of having that engineered and put in to code, the whole thing, and, having a contract with the city that, as the owner of this building, that I would, finance and pay for the maintenance of that So I think those were the key items. The parking, I think we're getting to a pretty close resolution on I'm not sure actually which sheet it's on. I broke down the parking interpretation. There we go. Thank you, Jeremy. With us doing a kind of a proposed first floor plan to have actual square footage application for required parking, and applying the mixed use with the residential up above. The one piece of that is kind of up for arbitration is what factor we would consider appropriate because of the nature of the different uses on the first floor, whether that shared use would be retail or would it be office, because we have both of those on that first floor, which would allow either a factor of 1.2 or 1.4 to be applied to the parking. We, of course, took the lower number of 9 spaces and applied that. And in the top right corner of the actual building itself, we have carved out a parking space. I believe the A2 sheet shows that, Jeremy, in the plan a little bit better. Yes, so you can see where we called out garage in that top right corner, where I'm actually even willing to carve out that space to have an internal garage count, to try to make this effort work. And then even though the parking right now just has head-in parking curbs, they don't actually meet code in terms of space and length of parking space. So again, Department of Transportation threw it back that if the city wanted to put in quote unquote street parking in that right of way, that would be fine. It would be considered public parking because it is not on our property. But again, that's something that I would be looking at doing as a part of the project with the city allowing it so that it's not incurring any expense to the city, to try to maximize providing extra quote, what they're calling street parking, even though it's in the right of way, not actually on the street. And then we would be utilizing, I believe it was 4 of the spaces that are within 400 feet of the building, which would be on A1 again. Yes, so we have indicated on the street there where there's existing street parking. So we would maximize what we can get between the right of way, carving out part of the usable space of the building to put in 1 garage space, and hopefully that would reconcile our parking issues.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Another comment related from the presentation. We'll open the floor up to a public comment period. So we'll let Ms. Sunderla from HBF start.
Hi, I'm Lisa Sunderla, Historic Beaufort Foundation. Hello, Lisa.
Hi there.
Hey, I want to thank you for meeting with our Preservation Committee, and we talked several other times as well, and at HTRC. We are very happy with what the design of the building itself and the reduction of the awning coming behind the parapet, and also the creation of the light well. I think that was an excellent solution for what she was doing. And we appreciate so much that she took close attention to the industrial heritage of the building and has been able to create a design that is both complementary and functional with the use of the structure. And I don't know if I pointed this out at the other meeting, even though the county and survey, the county, when you go onto the properties, says it is 1955 or so. It was not included on the above ground survey in any way. It was not surveyed, so it did not have a designation. But going back to Sanborn maps, we did find the same footprint in 1924 with the same lot as a part of the parcel, but there were 2 dwellings on the same parcel adjacent to it. So we, I think what she's done and been able to show with this design really works, and we appreciate the effort with that. We have not had a chance to discuss any of the planted pots. This is the first I'm seeing that, to comment on that, but I don't see any issue or concern with that. And with regard to the parking, I have one question. What are we talking about? Is it going to be pervious? Is it going to be just the grass? What was the thinking with regard to that?
The
But
idea is when
otherwise-
that is taken, the existing, it's really just kind of a road cover that would be done with gravel and pavers, obviously with the appropriate striping or indication for the parallel parking, which is the only thing that fits legally there. But the idea would be to make that impervious. Obviously, we would bring in a civil engineer because of the curb cut and the corner stormwater drainage. Obviously, we want to do that in a way that's beneficial to what's existing there. But the idea would be to tear up what's there and make it an impervious surface.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you for your attention to detail. You were definitely a delight to work with, and we support preliminary approval. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Sumner. Any other public comment online or in the audience? Hearing none, seeing none, we're going to close the public comment and bring it up to the board. This is for preliminary. And it sounds to me like there's a few code compliance issues that still need to be ironed out before it comes back to final. But it looks like most of the architectural components are there. Some favorable comment seems to have made already. So what is our thoughts on this structure itself? Anybody?
All right, so I'm not an engineer. I will preface this by saying that, but it appears to me that, well, first of all, I was under the impression from the last meeting that we were looking for an awning up top that was a little, I mean, it's definitely flattened, but I still think it has too much importance to when you look at the front elevation. I still think it takes away from the parapet. Regardless, when I look at this, I'm not sure if it's being depicted correctly because the hangers that are holding that awning up look awfully small. And I'm nervous that you may have to go back to putting columns under there. And what's that going to start to look like if you can't, I mean, how is that going to be held up?
May I say something?
Just hold up a minute and we'll let you address this.
I mean, I'm just nervous that as we move forward, it's gonna, in order to make it work, it's gonna start getting bigger and more important and take away from the
I understand.
parapet.
So it's not, you don't feel it's fully developed at this point.
I kind of wonder, I mean, honestly, as I said, I'm not an engineer, but when you go around town and look at all the new construction, everyone has those little awnings with the little hangers and
Yeah. Well, when you look at
that
our,
just looks super small.
yeah, when you look at an artistic illustration like this, it's hard to get the points of structural stability and stuff out of it. So it could be an illusion that we don't quite see. I think there's some other questions about the awning from other members maybe. And then we'll ask Lisa to opine on what she thinks. You anything on related to the awning?
No.
I echo the same comments. I think if you zoom in on that, and I know this perspective, or maybe Jeremy can even go to cross section, but that's a cantilevered element there when you have that much extending beyond that bracket. And if you look, it also doesn't have any relationship there to the windows below. It's kind of falling at an odd place and it's coming close to the window. So you'd think there would be some relationship either in the center or on the edge of the window. Very minor. I'm sure they can work through this, whether it's has an arch or bow. I think I would agree with Kim. If it extends out almost to the face of the parapet below, then it starts to compete.
More of a roof than.
Yeah, it becomes a bit more, because that parapet should be the more
Yeah.
important element, I think. So you see how close it is. And right there in that section,
That pretty
or
much
that
shows.
side view, and if, I know these may not be construction drawings, but I guess this is final, right?
No, it's preliminary.
Well,
These are
regardless-
things that they would come back to and answer these questions.
Regardless, they should address that amount of structural cantilever. I know it can be done, but I think it comes point, when you go out that far, it's almost now there's so much structure, it needs more of a column.
Yeah.
Unless it's engineered within the building ceiling design. So, a cantilevered system can be engineered to do that, carry that load.
Well,
Nope.
that's fine, but but when you, again, I think, I'm making my observation here, and if you look at this view, It's coming very close to the parapet below. I think it's too close. If it's going to have a subordinate position in this, in the hierarchy, it ought to be pulled inward, closer to the building, away from the parapet.
I'm hearing some pretty good argument that there's study needs to be done on the awning itself, whether it's an awning or roof projection. Some more focus before final on those details is what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
but other than that, I mean, they have a nice project. I think they've addressed the comments, and it's, that's very minor in the scheme of things.
Yeah, when I first looked at it, my first thought was it should be straight because we talked about it last time. Then I looked at it and said, no, it's got the barrel roof and it is a separation. So I kind of started falling for the curvature of it. Now looking at that side elevation and seeing the projection of it, I kind of agree with you. Maybe it needs to be pulled back slightly and rethought of how it actually could be built without column support, or maybe even go further and put a column support under it to see what that would look like. So Lisa, I think what we're telling you on that is please restudy the awning a little more detail, give us some side elevations of it to show us what it might look like. Some more detail on distances off the parapet wall, height and distance setback. And then I think as we go through the next week, waiting for you to come back for final, as we drive by, I think you can get a kind of a visual of what might happen there.
Yeah.
From the street level, because this picture, you don't see that high up, really, when you're driving by. I mean, you might see it from 2 blocks away if you're looking real hard. But when you're close to that building, you're not looking up on the roof lines. You're not seeing any of that. But anyway, that's one. All right. Anything else architecturally related to the structure? I found it interesting, the garage door kind of slipped by me on the first read, that there actually is a garage door here. But
Yeah.
then looking at the parking possibilities, I think that study needs to be done, that you lose a space on the street if you make that an active
Right.
garage.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah, with
But-
that garage there, you lose that space there at the end.
So Lisa, let us figure out if we have a question for you on that. It may not be something you have to answer, but let's just see if anybody else has a question about. Because parking is not something we're going to get into details on how you do. That's a code compliance issue that you'll have to work out prior to final.
Mhm.
But I know there's some hair on this, trying to figure out where to park and all. And with the new codes, we've often allowed off-site parking to count as parking for projects that typically would require on-site parking. It looks like this project is predominantly based on off-site parking to some degree. So those are concerns that the code people will have to work through you with.
But she owns the lot next to it, correct?
Yeah, but there's no plan right now that shows parking on that lot. So I think those things, we don't need an answer, Lisa. I think the thing is you've got to solve that, and then we'll take what the staff says related to code compliance as for the parking component of it. I think it's a great idea to have a garage bay in there for retail space. So if it is an operable garage, it makes that space a lot more desirable for potential lease, depending on the use of the building. And then the zoning, I think in that zone, the Transect zoning allows what we used to call a neighborhood commercial. And I think that's why you're able to do residential and retail and office. All three could be worked in that building under the new code and under the old code. So I think it's a good looking project. I don't have anything else related to the architecture.
Sorry.
Alicia, you have any comments you want to make on anything we've said? Voluntarily, you can. Oh, you're muted, Lisa. There you go.
Sorry, my dog's barking in the background. I apologize. No, I agree with the whole canopy issue, and that had slipped by me during the graphics. And I do think additional studies on that are warranted. And the parking obviously is something that we've delved into and trying to get our numbers in order.
Okay, great. All right. Any other comments related to the preliminary request for preliminary? Yes, sir.
I would just say I would make the first one a recommendation, just for a condition, about the shortening because it's not in your packet. And the parking, I think, just came up in the last day or two, but we'll have to review it because that garage is being shown cannot be counted. You can't put a parking space in front of the garage the way it's oriented, so we'll
Right.
have to work on that. But there are other options, so we'll work on it with her in the meantime.
Okay. So if we we have no other comment about architecture related to the preliminary, then we'll take a well-worded motion for preliminary. Let's review staff's comments real quick, though, make sure we don't.
I do agree with the staff comments that we need to kind of know what the height is of that light deck that she has. Because I didn't see it anywhere, the height.
I think, yeah, I agree with staff. So if there's motion in order, Mr. Chairman, I would move to give this, this preliminary approval, including staff's comments and restudying that upper canopy.
Okay.
I
Anybody want a
second
second?
that.
Second, okay, Kim second. All right, so we have a motion on the table and a second. Any other further conversation or debate or clarity on the motion? Hearing none, call for a motion. We'll start down here with Kim.
I'm sorry, I was writing something.
No, we're asking for a vote on the motion. He's just
Oh,
making.
yeah,
So you're in
Yay.
support of it?
I do
All
support it.
right, you're in support of your own motion.
Aye.
I'm in support of it.
Aye.
Okay, Lisa, thank you very much. It looked like a great project. Wish you speed in getting the final things done and get it back to us.
Thank you. Definitely, hopefully next month.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Yes, and before we close the meeting, Ms. Sunderland has a comment she'd like to make.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was running a little late, and so I missed the part where I'm sure Kurt announced that 316 Federal had been pulled. But I wanted to let y'all know about the process and where we got, because as Grady had put us all together to kind of work together, I think it's important that y'all know what exactly transpired. We worked extremely well with Ms. King, and we're very delighted with the process that we went through, and appreciated Adam Berry stepping up to come in and work with us on this. And from a design perspective, the key elements in thinking about it being accepted on the contributing list was to make sure that we retained, to the most part, meeting the 7 integrities, that we were able to retain those character defining elements of the structure, which of course was the brick pattern, the parapets on either end as well too, and the general form. And then with the hyphen, as was discussed at previous meetings, it really needed to be less obtrusive and actually blend and be more sensitive to the structure. And we think that was very successfully done. Kudos to Adam and to Lynn King for being able to do that. They also were able to originally, when the designs came and we looked through them last week, there were originally support columns that were in the middle coming from retaining the fence wall, which was another defining characteristic of the building. And at our request, they removed those, which opened it up. It's set back. The design was set back as we had all discussed. And the only concern that we had from a contributing perspective was change in the original window openings on the front of the building. But we were going to support the recommendation of it being listed as contributing on the 1997 above ground survey. Come to find out what the challenge was unfortunately the 33% rule of the flood ordinance. They were able to, if by becoming contributive, to be exempt from the 50% rule, but the 33% rule would have required the reduction in the new addition of 200 square feet. And the recommendation of Mr. Skipper had been to reduce the porch on the rear by 200 square feet, then it would be within it. And then it would not be required to elevate that addition or hyphen, to elevate that hyphen by probably 9 to 11 feet. So that was what stymied it going forward. And we're hopeful that because we think we might be able to get that exempted. We discussed with Bruce today by doing a Part 1 certification for preliminary review by the SHPO's office, that we might be able to get that exempted, but we haven't had a chance to say that to Ms. King yet. We talked about that prior to coming into the meeting. What we hope is that it doesn't move to the step of demolition. And that is our real concern. The design overall, but I think from her just going through the whole process, making one more change, just, wasn't in her cards, at this moment. But Kurt did have a chance to meet with her also today, so I don't know if any other comment came out of that. But I wanted y'all just to understand what had happened with the process, because we were moving in a really good direction until we found out about the flood.
I have a question, Lisa.
Mhm.
The thing that would have made it a contributing structure was the fact that it was two small, entirely brick buildings sitting on the same lot. So if we were to change and allow her to continue with that approved construction renovation, then it would no longer be two small brick buildings.
No, yeah.
So,
that's not the right approach to looking at it becoming contributing. So what you have to think about from the 7 integrities is, and also from the Secretary of Interior standards, is recognizing that any addition or any change to that building retains the character defining features of that building. And so the character defining features are being retained with the, except for the window openings. The character defining features are being retained, and that the addition is sympathetic and sensitive to it so that you can tell the difference between the old and the new, but it does not obscure.
Okay, let's
The
almost
historic
stop the
structure.
conversation related, because the reality is
Yeah.
we have no topic here, and we're actually,
No,
we're talking,
right.
it's nice information to have, and I
Yeah.
think we need it's not necessarily a training, information, but I think just,
Yeah. No, I get you.
we found ourselves in an odd situation, first of all,
Yes,
and I believe we need more information for the future on it, but not here, not now, and not about that particular topic.
I
Should be
agree.
a more general conversation about codes, compliancy, how it relates to contributing, non-contributing structure. That type of training is more important than picking apart one project.
I agree. I just wanted y'all to understand that what y'all had requested had occurred, and it just unfortunately was upended.
okay.
Very much.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Maybe at some point, I don't know, when we do the next training session, that this topic specifically be included, because I think
Yeah.
I need more background. And I
Mm.
think when we keep it generic, this project
So-
is no longer in front of us, but I'd
Yeah.
like to know more about.
So Kurt, what I'm hearing up here is that if we have an opportunity at a future meeting, if you could put in a few minutes of some factual data that relates, not, I mean, I don't want to beat this particular project. up,
Right.
But I think understanding
The flood,
how the flood impacts these different, like, see, we had two things going on. We had the 50% rule that was easy to understand for the most part.
Mhm.
But once you start getting the new addition, there's a whole nother code compliancy there with the percentage of expanded square footage, which, was not talked about really in the beginning of the conversation. So, but we need to look at it, so this board's more educated on it and the public maybe gets a chance to understand.
sure, no problem. We'll do that.
Now that I am the contributing structures process. because
Right.
That's more of a code thing that should have never been brought in front of this body.
Right.
In the circumstance, they should have dealt with that prior to it ever getting to.
Yes, I agree.
That's a reality. That's a fact.
And that's a learning curve. I think
Yeah.
we don't see this often. But we do need to have these kind of conversations.
Sure, it's a unique, was a
It
unique
totally
process.
felt-
and I think we tried to do everything we could,
Got it.
possible idea, but I will tell you that Bruce has been trying to, spend hours with her, and I don't think I think the fault did not, was maybe shared between many entities, so.
Well, there's one
But-
fact,
but what-
we're not gonna overcome the fact that we sit in something called the low country, and most of our historic fabric, it sits below the flood elevation. So regardless if it's historic on a list or specifically a building there, they all face the same challenges in the future. So we may not be able to fix it at a city level. And if so, then we need to be educated on it so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Well, just like we talked at the training, which I think went really well, we talked about, you know, some of those, having like a policy that, for applicants and, for a lot of issues like windows, et cetera. Maybe we can, we were gonna work on that and bring it back to you. And maybe we can have, Bruce and myself and Jeremy kind of discuss the flood at those issues at the next meeting. Especially if we only have 1 or 2 cases, that works for all of you.
Yeah, it'd be great. Today would have
Yeah.
been a good lesson. We could have stayed another hour doing training, but. we
Sure,
didn't know.
sure. And we just didn't have time after the training, and yeah, just didn't have time. But I did want to thank Jeremy because, I was on vacation and he kind of handled a lot of this, for this meeting, and then the storm hit, and
Bless
so
him.
kind of a little weird, and also wanted to say that I think Maria got in an accident last week, so we're kind of,
Oh,
she's okay, so,
you okay?
Yeah, she's okay. She hopefully will be back tomorrow. She did have some bruising and she's had a concussion, so she's under concussion protocol.
Oh, tell her we're thinking about her.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Kurt, you got anything else for the board today? All right,
Move to adjourn, motion to adjourn.
all right. We